I think you, like me, have probably felt COVID has been an epic emotional roller coaster. We've existed day to day, and those days have often sort of blurred into each other. The question is, how can we use the experience we've had to help us get through the rest of COVID and then flourish into the new world? Because there is going to be a new world afterwards. There's no going back. We need to dig deeper into what's really been going on beneath the surface to discover the secrets and learn from them, using those to guide us into the future. So this is what I decided to do. This is the first in my series of making that happen. And today's focus is people. As with previous pandemics from ancient Greece to 1918, in 2021 as humans we're responding very much in the same way as our ancestors. Initial shock, then denial. Uncertainty about the future, community and business dysfunction, then disillusionment and sometimes even despair. Neuroscience tells us that even though the world has changed, the way our brains respond to different events hasn't. So despite all the societal, technological and other differences between now and 1918 or even ancient Greece, we're still human beings with similar hopes, similar fears about ourselves, our friends, our families and society. Our brains have now been subjected to cognitive overload for nearly a year. Now, as humans, we can cope with change, but when those changes are multiple and all of them have significant impact on the core structure of our lives, and they are combined with long-term uncertainty with no end in sight, after a while we have difficulty coping. And self-assessments of people's own mental state as poor have increased threefold since COVID started. Now, whilst COVID has impacted men more than women in terms of the physical illness and death rates, it's interesting that the reverse appears to be the case in terms of the impact of stress, particularly around families. Our responses to the pandemic demonstrate well-documented phases experienced by those who have been dealing with disasters. At the start of COVID, we had this heroic response. We stepped up, we worked together, we actually put our lives on hold to hopefully sprint to the end of COVID within a couple of months. Things actually came together unexpectedly well. Remote working wasn't a disaster that many predicted, and even uncooperative colleagues decided to be cooperative at this point. The problem was that the sprint then became a marathon, and we had to dig in for the long haul. Now, this realization and the lockdown continuation started to seriously impact day-to-day life, relationships and work. Now, that started causing social isolation and growing personal proximity to illness and death. You see, the fundamental beliefs and activities which underpinned our daily lives had been put on hold with no seeming end, and that took a toll. Then the second waves hit. Hopes were dashed again. More and more people had either personally suffered from COVID or lost a family member. Worse was still to come, and still no end in sight. This resulted in many people moving into grief, despair and hopelessness. Yes, okay, hope returned a little bit with the vaccine vision. That seemed to herald normality coming soon. The problem was that this only turned into a potential very small light at the end of an even darker tunnel as more uncertainty hit and further periods of lockdown stress. Now we're living on the edge, hoping that the vaccines will beat the variant spread. But it's more uncertainty and stress, hoping that things will get better, but knowing over the next couple of months it could get even worse if we don't stick to the scientific guidance to stop the spread. How have we responded? What does that tell us? Probably that our own responses were natural, predictable and consistent with the same perspectives and feelings that many other people had, and that we can learn lessons through that which will be of value even after COVID has gone. Having been an army officer and a board advisor to a charity helping injured servicemen forced to leave the services deal with life-changing injuries, I'm fully aware of the shattering impact not only physically but mentally that such events caused. Now, whilst COVID will not have had such a traumatic impact for most people, the responses from those servicemen experiencing those truly life-changing events and how they potentially move successfully on can help us think about how we can move on from COVID. But this may also help those of you who have actually had life-changing events as a result of COVID as well. Their responses tended to fall into three groups. One, the looking backwards. just trying to move back or live in a reflection of a long lost past, not accepting the present and inevitably failing. Living in the now. No past, no future, caught in a Groundhog Day which never seems to allow you to move forwards. Finally, leap of faith, starting anew based on accepting the reality of the present and creating a vision of an optimal personal future. What's next for you and me? Well, we need to start to plan our own post-COVID world based on our experiences, inevitably change priorities and perspectives, looking at how we think we will best flourish in this new world. The evidence clearly shows that those who adopted the leap of faith mindset were much more likely to move forward successfully with a vision of their own future. Perhaps it's time for us all to start to think about what's our leap of faith. Linked to these, there are other things we can all do which have helped people move successfully through COVID and which may help you and others move into the future. There are 4 worth focusing on. 1, it's okay not to be okay sometimes. Others have and they feel it. Share it. 2, compassion. When you are on your roller coaster going up, then support those who are on theirs going down. Surviving tough times is often easier thinking we, not me. 3, cherish every positive moment you see or feel, no matter how small. If it helps you, write them down, share them, build a reservoir of those positive ups for you to look at when your roller coaster heads down. 4, realism with optimism. Look for the light at the end of the tunnel to sustain you, but accept that that tunnel could be longer than you wanted. But inevitably you will get to the end, in the end. Hopefully this has given you some insight into your journey so far, a better understanding of how other people may be thinking and feeling, and it may help you move forwards more successfully through COVID and into the new post-COVID world. Good luck, and my next video digs down under the world of work.